But the Ottawa Senators have made some big-time moves. And joining us to talk about it is our good friend Shawn Simpson from TSN 1200 Ottawa and also CTV. Am I right, Simmer? You're a big TV star now. I see that all the time on your social media.
Well, I just promote it. Do a little sports hit there. It's going international. So, and I want the listeners to know that you were the original Rod the Bod before Rod Brindamore came along. So he just copied your name.
Right. Oh, hilarious. That's real funny. Buttering me up, Simmer. I love it. Hey, can you... Let's start with the Sens, and then I just want to swing it back on the Flames for a second. What an offseason. Is it enough to get them into the playoffs, do you think?
You know what? We'll see about that, Rod, but I'll tell you what, they've turned around the franchise. The perception, nobody could have thought all these things would happen, from the buyout of White to Delzato to moving Matt Murray to all of a sudden bringing in DeBrincat Drew, still looking for a right-handed D. But this has been an absolute transformation. And when you look at the team on paper, do I think they're good enough to make the playoffs? They're close, but more than anything, it's just everything that's happened here. Daniel Alfred's getting into the Hall of Fame. You had the approval of Breton Flats. It's just been a complete turnaround for the franchise. Much needed. Been covering this for 10 years. And hey, they got a hell of a hockey team. But more importantly, I think people are regaining faith in the brand. And I think more pride in the brand. So it's been a real exciting last month here in Ottawa.
It has been a great offseason, and it is exciting, and I'm following it all through your social media, just so you know. I love the coverage, so Johnny Gaudreau comes out with a letter to Calgary today in the Players Tribune. You've heard of it if you haven't seen it. And like Claude Giroux went home, Johnny left here to get closer to home. You've worked in the NHL front office. How much do hometown players, how much are they coveted by teams? How much do they investigate that?
I think it's super overrated. And we ended up having Mark Mathot come home. It was great. Then Mark loved going to Dallas. And it has to be the right fit. And Claude Giroux isn't necessarily finished in his career. He's 34 years old, but it's the right fit at the right time. He's also making good money. When I worked for the Leafs during the terrible years of 04 to 08, we brought Lindros home and lots of other guys, Jeff O'Neill, but they were pretty much done in their career. So it's got to be a fit. It's got to make sense. And in the case of Johnny Hockey, it's just kind of hard to understand. Was it turning down the 8 years in Calgary and then realizing, gosh, it's not going to be there in New Jersey? Something strange had to happen for him to end up signing in Columbus, put that much money or leave that much money on the table. So I find that unique, Rob. But like I said, don't force it. If it fits, if it works. In the case of Drew, I think it does. But beyond that, it's real overrated. We hear people in Ottawa, Uyghur wants to come back to Ottawa. I'm like, listen, I think he's doing just fine in South Florida. If it works and a guy wants to come back, so be it. But don't force it.
Well, you've got one Tkachuk there in Ottawa, and all this stuff that buzzes out there that we could have two Tkachuks on our top line in Ottawa. What's your read on the Matthew Tkachuk situation? Because you understand these contracts far better than I. Where do you see the Matthew Tkachuk thing going?
I don't see it going anywhere. I pray that it isn't happening. This is Brady Tkachuk's team. I'll tell you a funny story about the Janssens in Long Island back in the day. They had Kenny Janssen, the defenseman. Forever they wanted to get Jorgen Janssen, his brother. Well, they found out when they got them, the Wise didn't get along. How did it work for the Stahl brothers in Carolina? This is Brady's team. There's no need for Matthew to come here. I don't believe it for a minute. And with DeBrincat making $9 million and all the other things going on, I honestly think it would be a big mistake. So I'm hoping that's not the case. They've got a good chemistry. They've got a young group. Brady's the captain. He doesn't need his big brother coming to Ottawa. So I wouldn't say I'm not believing it, but I just don't see it working. And I honestly, I think at the end of the day, he's going to end up in St. Louis regardless.
Well, the Flames haven't had a captain since Giordano left, but I would suggest, having watched half their games this year live, that it is Matthew Tkachuk's team. So when I say where it's going, do you think he ever wears a Flames jersey again, from what you can see?
I don't know. I mean, Brad is certainly in a real tough spot here. And I kind of look at this understanding, listen, okay, at the end of the day, if he wants to go back to St. Louis, if that's what he's doing and doesn't want to sign in Calgary, what are you going to do? You could trade him to another team. They know they're only going to get him for a year. So there's not a lot of leverage for the Calgary Flames. And I even said today, I wouldn't rule out him going to St. Louis, signing a one-year deal for less money and then extending from there. But like I said, Calgary's in a tough spot. And one of the things here you learn, and I know with Johnny Hockey, they had no choice, but never let a guy go in the last year of his contract. But in this particular case, because of the money, because of the situation, depending on the word that the agent's putting out, like I said, they'll get value for him, and maybe you just take him to the trade deadline and trade him as a rental anyway. But as to how it plays out, I'm not sure. But unfortunately, I don't think Calgary's in a very good position, Rod.
Well, and I wonder how they could change that. That's the one. There's a lot of heat on the Flames in this town for these guys potentially headed elsewhere. How would you have changed it when they're Americans that have said, because of family, we don't want to play here anymore?
Well, I don't think. Brad does a great job. You know what? Last year, you go into a final year. I wouldn't have let that happen with Gaudreau, but the season started great. You're finally winning, and you say to yourself, hey, we're going to take our chances. And if Johnny was giving them the vibe that, hey, maybe he was going to stay, which it sounded like he was, I think it's a real tough spot to be. I don't think it's a reflection on Calgary. I know the heat's on, but if players don't want to play, from Pierre-Luc Dubois, and I won't just say this is a Canadian thing, Rick Nash didn't want to be in Columbus. We always kind of feel as Canadians, oh, guys don't want to be here. Hey, this can happen in lots of different situations. It's real tough. This is the business of hockey right now. I think it's more philosophical, is that if Tkachuk decides to go, Rod, I think at that point, if you're Calgary, you regroup and go into a little bit of a rebuild. That's the only difference for me, but I don't put any fault in the Calgary Flames, and we all know it's a great city. Now, as far as the COVID and the handling and everything else, well, that's out of our control. That's up to the federal government, but I would never discount the Flames or the city of Calgary.
I don't either, but the R word, I've heard it, rebuild here in Calgary this week, but the general feeling is they're not there yet. Now, I want to put one more to you. Viewer wrote in earlier and said the Jets haven't been the same since Buffalin pulled the pin. And you look back, and I think I'd agree. And there again, how do you blame the Jets on that? Guy decided he didn't want to play hockey anymore.
Well, they also had the same year that Trouba's wife could only be a doctor in the United States, and that's circumstantial. They also lost Myers on the right side. They made a hell of a trade with Trouba. You know what? They had their window, though. The year they lost to Vegas was their opportunity. I'd say it was probably when Stastny also walked out the door. You can factor in lots of things on that as to doing it. I think Chevy's done a hell of a job there. I think what it proves, Rod, for a lot of teams, first of all, how hard it is to win. We've seen with Colorado. The other part is how small the windows can end up being for many reasons, including contractual. But I don't think this is some big epidemic, and we still have a little bit of the Chris Pronger syndrome in Canada. And like I said, there's lots of Americans, lots of Europeans that love coming to Canada and having great careers.
Oh, isn't that a fact? Oh, Simmer, we could talk about this all day. As a matter of fact, just this morning, guy here at the casino, when I walked, security is like, we don't have a problem with the Russians. They want to be here. We don't have a problem with the Swedes. They want to be here. It's the Americans.
Yeah.
Is it an American thing? Pronger was Canadian.
Remember when Keith Tkachuk went to Winnipeg and loved playing there? Remember when Bill Guerin and Doug Waite were there? Remember when Gary Suter and all those great Flames players, including Bob Johnson, who was the coach, all loved playing? Like I said, I don't believe that. These can be certain. And one thing I said today, it's also different. If you've got a young single hockey player that's playing, but sometimes when you enter in family dynamics can certainly be a factor. And that can factor in a little bit. But like I said, it doesn't happen all that often. You look at Austin Matthews, appears to be having a blast playing in Toronto. And I think look at a guy like Wheeler who's signed on for life to play for the Winnipeg Jets.
But the players are different. They're different now. When you mention those guys, Suter and Keith, and
sure, yeah.
All right, Simmer, enjoy the rest of the summer. Appreciate the insight. This has been awesome.
All right, cheers, brother. Have a great day, Rod.
TSN 1200 Ottawa's Shawn Simpson.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.